Hello everyone, it's Miss LaChance. Thank you so much for clicking onto this video. In today's video, we will be reading chapters 6 through 10 of our read aloud book, The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. In the last video, I read chapters 1 through 5, and I actually made that video on the same day that I'm making this video, so that's why I'm wearing this same shirt and my hair looks the same. It is the same day. And I actually will be making the third video on this same day as well, so my outfit and hair will be the same in the next video as well. So I just wanted to let you know, just in case you were thinking that I was wearing the same outfit 3 days in a row. That is not the case, even though there's nothing wrong with that, especially in summer. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into chapter 6, called The Monster. Before chapter 6, I just wanted to let you know that if you are forgetting some of the characters that we met in the first 5 chapters, or if you need a reminder about some of the events that have happened so far in the beginning of the book, go ahead and watch the last video that I posted where I read chapters 1 through 5. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into chapter 6, called The Monster. The cows were munching hay in their stalls when the big barn door slid open and a mechanical monster stomped in from the rain. The creature marched down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous space, until she found an empty corner. And there she stood, in the shadows, as a storm began to rage outside. Everybody listened as the rain poured and the wind howled and the thunder cracked. By midnight, the storm had blown over, and there was only a gentle sprinkling on the roof. But the herd couldn't rest with that monster lurking in the corner. Cows began quietly mooing to each other. "What is the monster doing? She hasn't moved in hours. I bet she's waiting to eat us in our sleep." The cows gasped at this horrible thought, and then an old cow named Annabelle tried to calm down the herd. "Relax, everyone," she said. "There were monsters like this at my last farm, and they never ate any cows. Come to think of it, they never ate anything at all." "If this monster has never eaten anything at all, she must be awfully hungry by now," said a cow named Tess. "I saw the farmer driving the monster around in his truck," said a calf named Lily. "I don't think he would have done that if she were dangerous." Nobody quite knew what to think of the strange creature in their midst. "I think the monster is harmless. I think the monster is unnatural. I think the monster is moving." The herd fell silent as the monster marched out from the shadows and into the middle of the barn. And then the monster did the impossible. She did the unthinkable. She spoke to the cows in the language of the animals. "I am not a monster. I am a robot, and my name is Roz." So as we can see, she is changing from speaking in her normal robot voice, and now she is communicating in the same voice that she communicated with to her friends and family on the island in the first book. So pretty interesting. Chapter 7 is called The Robot's Story. I'm wondering if she might tell some of her background to some of these new farm animals that she's meeting. None of the cows could believe that this monster, this robot, this machine had just spoken to them in the animal language. They stared at her, nervously shifting in their stalls, wondering what she would do next. What Roz did next was simple. She told the truth. She stood in the middle of the barn and shared her story with the herd. "I spent my first year of life on a remote, wild island," Roz began. "I did not know how I got there. I only knew that I wanted to survive. So I studied the island animals to see how they survived. And a surprising thing happened. Their sounds and movements started making sense to me. I was learning the language of the animals. Even when I could speak to them, the animals wanted nothing to do with me. But that changed when I discovered an orphaned gosling. The poor little thing would have died on his own, so I cared for him and adopted him as my son. His name is Brightbill. A murmur spread through the herd. What do you think that word means? A murmur spread through the herd. Go ahead and comment in the comment section below if you have a guess as to what that word murmur means. When the animals saw me caring for Brightbill, they finally accepted me. I was no longer alone. I had friends and a family and a home. Life was good. Until the Recco robots arrived. They came in their sleek white airship to take me away, and when I resisted, they became violent. The animals defended me. They fought bravely and destroyed the Reccos, but I was badly damaged in the fighting. I needed repairs, and I could not get them on the island. So the animals loaded my broken body into the airship, and it took me far away from my home. Lily, the calf, poked her head through the railing and said, "What about Brightbill?" "My son is smart and tough, and he has a good flock," said Roz. "I think he will be okay without me." "Where were you taken?" said Tess. "I was taken back to the factory where I was made. The factory is run by a crew of robot workers called the Makers. When I arrived, they put me in a room filled with other broken robots. Some robots were completely ruined, and the Makers immediately sent them away. But those of us with working computer brains were given a test." "What kind of test?" said Lily. "The Makers simply asked us questions. They asked us how we had become damaged. They asked us how we would respond to different emergencies. They asked us to identify certain sounds and smells and objects. Robots who answered every question correctly were repaired. All others were destroyed. In the wilderness, I camouflaged my body to survive. In the robot factory, I camouflaged my personality to survive. I pretended to be a perfectly normal robot. I did not say that I had adopted a goose, or that I could speak with animals, or that I had resisted the Reccos. I said what I had to say to pass the test, and it worked." "Good for you, Roz," shouted Tess, and the other cows smiled. "The Makers shut me off, and when I awoke, my body was fixed and I was on this farm. Now, like all of you, I belong to Mr. Sharif." The cows stopped smiling. Everyone was quiet, and then old Annabelle spoke up. "I was taken from my friends and family too," she said. "They're back on the farm where I was born. I still think about them every day." "It is difficult to be apart from our loved ones," said the robot. Here we can see Roz expressing some empathy towards this cow Tess that she just met. Pretty interesting. "You know, Roz, things could be worse," said Tess. "At least on this farm, you're still surrounded by nature." "Yes, things could be worse." The robot's eyes brightened a little. "But I am not safe here. If any human ever learns who I really am, they will have me destroyed. And that is why, when the time is right, I will try to escape." So it seems like Roz is doing this in a very smart way. She's not making impulsive decisions that will get her captured again. So I'm curious to see what her plan is to escape, and I'm assuming that it does involve these farm animals, and hopefully, or maybe she might, since she is expressing some empathy, comment in the section or the comment section below if you think that she might help some of these other farm animals escape and go back to their family. Chapter 8 is called The Computer. Chapter 9 is called The First Day. And then we're going to read Chapter 10, which will finish off this video, called The Routine. Inside the barn, the lights were low, the sounds were hushed, the night slowly wore on. A few cows were chewing hay, but most were resting peacefully. Our robot had returned to her corner. The soft glow of the computer screen lit up her face as she studied farming. She learned about the herd, about the pasture and the fields, about the native plants and wildlife, about the seasons and the climate and the weather, about the machines and the buildings and the fences and the tools and all the dairy equipment. Every detail was perfectly remembered in the robot's computer brain, and in a single night, Roz became a farmer. Comment below if you're interested. Why do you think it's important that Roz gets to understand the farm as much as she can? How would this be important to her future escape? Chapter 9 is called The First Day. At dawn, the cows began to stir. One by one, they walked out to the side door, across the muddy barnyard, and into the parlor for a quick milking before heading down to the pasture. They followed the same routine every morning like clockwork. However, on this morning, the cows were joined by a robot. With her computer brain full of farming knowledge, Roz was ready for her first day on the job. She stomped through the tall, wet grass, and her head slowly turned as she scanned the scenery. The sun was rising, the fog was lifting, the cows were grazing, and then the whole world seemed to flip upside down. Before Roz knew what was happening, she was on her back looking up at the sky. A long stretch, or a strong stench, sorry about that, a strong stench filled the air. Our robot had slipped on cow dung. Comment below if you know what cow dung is. The herd erupted into laughter. Tess called out, "Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz," which brought another round of snorts and moos. "You'll have to get used to cow patties and to laughter," said old Annabelle, strolling over. "Not much happens around here, so we're always eager to laugh." "I understand," said Roz. "I like laughing too." And she forced out an awkward ha, ha, ha. Then the robot stood up, wiped her feet, and continued exploring the farm. But she was more careful to watch where she stepped. The fields and buildings and fences were all in need of Roz's attention, but her most urgent task was to fix the broken farm machines. The herding machine was designed to roll through the pasture and look after the cows while they grazed, but it had gotten stuck in the mud and was becoming a popular hangout for birds. The field machine was gigantic, like a house on wheels. Ooh, I love that example of figurative language. Comment below if you think this sentence here is a metaphor or a simile. Remember, a simile is a comparison of two things using the words like or as, and a metaphor is comparing those two things without using those two words. The sentence is, "The field machine was gigantic, like a house on wheels." Go ahead and comment below. Is that a simile or a metaphor? It was designed to roam the fields, planting and fertilizing and harvesting the feed crops. But it had ground to a halt weeks ago and was now just collecting dust in a far corner of the property. The drone was a small flying machine with a special camera attached to its underside. It was designed to fly above the farm and keep an eye on the whole place. But it came crashing down when a mob of crows attacked it in flight. Other broken machines were hidden within clumps of weeds, and still more were waiting for repairs in the shed. The peaceful morning was suddenly jolted by the sounds of power stools as Roz began fixing the machines. Thanks to her robotic strength and smarts, she made excellent progress. The hours flew by, the machines rumbled back to life, and the farm began buzzing with activity. Here's a picture of the cows, and here's Roz at the top of the hill. At sunset, Rambler came bouncing down the driveway with the Sharifs in the front and Oscar in the back. "How's it going, Roz?" said Mr. Sharif, leaning out his window. The children giggled and waved from their seats. The dog sniffed the breeze. "It is going well," said Roz in a robotic voice. "Many of the machines are working again." "I see that." Mr. Sharif gazed up at the drone circling high overhead. We thought we'd come out and check on you, but it looks like you're doing just fine, so we'll stay out of your way. Keep up the good work, Roz." As the truck started rolling up the driveway, Oscar looked back at Roz and barked, "You smell like cow patties." He was right. The robot was filthy, and she finished her first day as a farmer by scrubbing herself with soap and water. All right, in chapter 10, this is the last chapter that we'll be reading today, is called The Routine. Reader, I don't want to bore you with every detail of our robot's farm routine. Many of her tasks were incredibly dull, others were quite unpleasant. I'll just say that on any given day, Roz might have to be a mechanic, or a veterinarian, or a gardener, or a plumber, or a cleaner, or a landscaper, or a carpenter, or electrician, or all of the above. Farm life kept Roz very busy indeed. Of course, she did have help. You already know about some of the machines, but the entire farm was equipped with technology that made life easier for everyone. Doors and gates opened automatically. The cows wore electronic collars that kept track of their health automatically. When a cow udders were full, she simply had to stroll into the parlor where she'd be milked by gentle machines automatically. All that milk was piped into storage tanks and cooled and bottled automatically. Once the milk truck was loaded up, it drove away and made its deliveries automatically. Mr. Sharif managed the business side of the farm. He dealt with customers and handled money and ordered supplies, and he did it all from the comfort of his home office. Now that he had a robot to do all the farm work, he hardly ever left his house. Roz was more content than she had ever expected to be. Most of her time was spent outdoors with animals under the wide open sky. Even while laboring in the fields, she could always stop to smell the flowers, look up at the clouds, feel the cool air drifting out from the trees. And yet Roz was living two lives. When she had the farm to herself, she could play with the calves or run through the grass or chat with the wildlife. But whenever the Sharifs were near, Roz had to pretend to be a normal robot. She could never let them know who she really was. And that is the end of chapter 10. I'll give you a sneak peek of chapter 11. It's called The Stragglers. When you hear that word, what do you think of? A straggler. Different people might come up with some different meanings to this word. So go ahead and comment below if you're interested. What do you think of when you hear that word stragglers? And then we will be diving into chapter 11 in the next video, and I'll read up to chapter 15. Once again, if you would like to comment to any of the questions or comments that I made throughout this video, please feel free to in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are enjoying watching these videos so far, and I can't wait to jump into chapter 11 in the next Read Aloud video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.